If you've ever sent a text and then held your breath while you waited for a response, and perhaps saw those three dots appear, held your breath some more, and then saw them disappear and felt your heart sink into your stomach. Or if you've ever written something and then reread it and took out all of the parts that seemed a little too honest. Or if you've ever had people comment on how confident and capable you are when you feel like anything but that inside. Or if you've ever really wanted to be closer to someone, but didn't feel that you could allow yourself the openness required to do that, this episode is for you. These aren't just random moments. These are moments we all experience. Moments where we reject ourselves in lieu of taking the risk of being rejected by others. What I want to explore is not necessarily about being more brave or more confident in our connections with others, but the ways we reject ourselves so that others can't. And in doing so, how this self-abandonment costs us the very connection we all need and long for in this world. If this speaks to you, join me for this episode. Welcome to the inaugural episode of the See It, Be It podcast. The podcast that you almost didn't see or hear, depending on how you're tuning in. You almost didn't see it or hear it because I was having a hard time being it, and I still am. This podcast has been years in the making, or at least years in my mind. And it would very likely stay there if I didn't just decide to break the seal. That is what this episode is about. This is about breaking the seal. This is about just doing it and letting go of all of the things that have held me back. For any of you who are podcasters out there, I bow down to you. This is not easy. This is terrifying. This is something that I thought should be easy for me. For those of you who know me, you know I like to talk. For those of you who are just hearing me for the first time, you already know I like to talk. And yet, my gosh, this has been a boulder I've been pushing up a hill, and letting it roll back down over me for what feels like a lifetime. And so, here in the Breaking the Seal inaugural episode of the See It Be It podcast, I am going to talk about the fear of being seen, because it is this fear, although probably some others as well, but this is the primary one that has kept me from being here. I have spent years thinking about, writing about, talking about, researching about this idea of wanting to help people to really see all that you can be and be everything that you might even think that you can't be, and give you some practical ways to do that. And yet, gosh, I just couldn't do it for myself. I found every reason to not move forward with this thing that is so important to me. It's important to me to help people. It's important for me to use some of the strengths that I have and share the weaknesses that I have so that you can learn from the mistakes that I've made and continue to make and will continue to make very publicly here in a podcast, because that's what we're doing now. So what we're doing now is, in this very moment, challenging my own fear of being seen, which is probably one of the greatest fears I have. So why not make a podcast, right? So, what am I talking about? What is this fear of being seen? Well, we all have this. We all want deeply, desperately to be loved and appreciated and cared for who we are inside and our deepest parts and our deepest longings. And yet, these are the parts of ourselves that we keep most hidden a lot of the time. And there are reasons for this. Previous hurts are often the reason for a lot of these things. Previous disappointments, things that might have happened a really long time ago in our childhood, things that aren't even necessarily big T traumas where you need decades of therapy about them, but just moments, and these can be micro moments of rejection. Rejection where you might have felt like you put yourself out there, either in a podcast in front of the world or in a school play or in suggesting a game to play with your friends or in a job interview or in making a suggestion in a staff meeting that you think everyone else is going to frown upon, or if you dare to allow yourself to fall in love and take the risk of being rejected, or if you did dare to fall in love, got rejected, and then don't want to risk doing it again. These are all ways that we learn not to be too much or not to do whatever it is that we think we're not supposed to do to make other people like us, to make other people want to stay with us, to make other people approve of us. And some of these needs are more relevant for some of us than others, depending on all kinds of variables, such as your past, such as personality preferences. But we all, no matter what our personality types or our attachment styles, we all have this need to belong and to feel safe being seen and appreciated and loved for who we truly are. And the problem is that we live in a world that takes us away from who we are so much. We live in a world that is busy, that celebrates being busy, that rewards being busy. And when I say being busy, I mean being anything but present to our experience. We are told to be something that's a little more comfortable for the world to tolerate. For those of you who are listening, I'm holding up a mask over my face that says brave face. And sometimes we need props like masks to help us get through the things that our world expects of us. But this is where we abandon ourselves. We lose touch with who we are when we stop seeing who we are. And if we can't see it, how can we possibly be more of who we really are? If we can't see the ways that we reject ourselves in the choices that we make, in the interactions that we have, in all of the ways that we make ourselves small or edit ourselves or tell ourselves that we can't be or feel, we break the connection with ourselves that is required for us to then have connection with others. And like it or not, in this world that is telling us to be hyper independent and self-sufficient, we need each other. We need meaningful connection with one another. And it's kind of funny that I'm saying that because let me tell you, I have refuted that very fact. As much as I have worked with people all my life, I have worked as an educator and a coach, helping people to be more of themselves and have better relationships with other people and all these things I say I believe in, and I do. Somewhere along the way, I abandoned myself. I told myself that other people needed this connection and I was capable of helping them find it to connect more with themselves so they could then connect meaningfully with other people. But I denied that for myself. I think it was a long time in coming. These things evolve slowly and insidiously throughout our lives. There was a time in my life where I actually received an award. It was called the Look at Me Award. And this was because I portrayed someone who really liked attention. And I did. I do. I like recognition. But over time, that was not how I wanted to be seen. Then over the years, like anyone else, I had rejections and losses and heartbreaks. Times when I would really put myself out there and say what I really felt or share an unconventional idea or ask for what I need. That's a big one. And unfortunately, these weren't always positive experiences. In fact, most of the time they weren't. And there are lots of reasons for this. And one of the reasons I would suggest would be the fact that over time, I became normalized to an experience of rejection. But you know what? A lot of the time, I'm not even sure it was the real me that was being rejected because I was so afraid to be seen for who I really am, not what I wanted other people to see or not what other people wanted me to be. And I did it to myself. I still do it to myself. Some of my favorite ways to avoid being seen are to intellectualize. Let's read a study or a book and talk about that and how that pertains to something in my life rather than actually talk about my life, if that makes sense. Researching and intellectualizing and talking about abstract ideas rather than talking about here's what's happening with me or here's what I need from you as I'm struggling with this thing that's happening within me. And, you have a few moments of that not going over so well. Or maybe you have a lifetime of them. And your body, my body, your body, and your mind start to decide that this is not good. This is something we need to protect ourselves from. This is something we don't do. This is something we build walls around. This is something we put armor on to protect against. So I wonder what kind of armor you have. We all have it. One of my favorites is keeping up appearances. If things look shiny and sparkly enough, no one will actually see something I might worry they think is really ugly underneath. And I don't mean like ugly in appearance, but like ugly as in, oh my God, how dare she be that? How dare she want that? How dare she think that? These fears come from moments where we put ourselves out there and rejection happens. But it's what we do with it and what we make up about it that can be life-changing, life-defining. And we also get to change that anyway. I was talking about some of my armor, keeping up appearances, making things look a certain way on the outside so people don't see what's on the inside. And that's like the brave face. I had a time in my life when someone gave me some feedback and it really stung. The feedback I received was that I presented myself with a lot of bravado. Why did that word sting? Because it was not how I wanted to be seen. To me, the word bravado meant arrogant, related to judgment I had about myself about liking the spotlight. So arrogant, conceited, wanting to take away from other people. Part of the baggage that came along with my personal story of wanting to be seen is that somehow along the way, it became harmful, hurtful to other people. I don't know that that's true. I don't know that I needed to take responsibility for that. And in fact, I didn't, but it still lives in there and it still can keep me from moving forward and keep me from being me and sharing what I can share to make life better for someone like you. And that's why it has to stop. So anyway, this time when someone said I presented with bravado, it was not how I wanted to be seen. If I look up the word bravado, as I did a few years after the original comment was made, bravado can mean things like a false, exaggerated, or boastful display of courage. It can be a confident way of behaving that is intended to impress people, sometimes as a way of hiding a lack of confidence. A pretentious, swaggering display of courage. So, as much as I didn't want to hear that comment years ago, there was truth to that. I was trying to impress other people. I did want people to see me as courageous and brave. Part of my job was to do that, to support other people to be the same. But the other part was, as one of the definitions said, to disguise a lack of confidence. And there's nothing wrong with having a little something that you put on. There's nothing wrong with having a prop, like a mask. As long as you are aware of it, as long as you are choosing to put it on, and as long as it doesn't keep you from communicating and really being seen. So that bravado that person saw in me, I didn't want them to see that. They were not seeing me. My desire to put on a mask to do the things I needed to do stood in the way of what I really wanted, which was connection with other people. I wanted other people to see me for who I really am. And at that time in my life, I was definitely covering up a lot of things, including to myself, to circle back to the earlier point of self-abandonment. So sometimes what can happen is when we spend a lot of time using props, putting on masks, being something that maybe we really aren't. And again, sometimes we do need to do that. Sometimes life requires us to step up, find that courage that we don't really feel that we have within, and do what we need to do. But when it comes to human connection and relationship and the things that matter most to me in my life, those things can get in the way. And if I'm not aware of them, that's the problem. And when this person made that comment, I really felt, believe it or not, like I was a pretty authentic person. In fact, I was teaching other people how to be more authentic. Meanwhile, people who were seeing me all the time weren't seeing me because I was wearing a mask. And I was wearing a mask in so many parts of my life. I wanted people to see something that wasn't true. And I also wanted me to see that. I didn't want to see how I was abandoning myself in my life, the choices I was making that were not true to who I really am. Many years later, I'm so grateful for that comment about bravado. I'm grateful that person had the bravery, the confidence, maybe even some bravado to share with me what they saw, because it began a bit of a journey for me about intentionality, but also about what I was not willing to see in myself and in my life. That was really important because there were changes that needed to be made, and there are still many changes that need to be made. And that's the thing, here I am. I'm starting this podcast. I'm starting this podcast because I want to help you. And I have a lot of learning to do. And I can help you. I can help you by taking off some masks, but also by putting some on and making that okay. There are so many times in my life where I have hated myself for my props. I have hated myself for the things that I feel that I need to feel more confident, to be able to put myself out there, to try to be seen. Things like, it's uncomfortable even saying it. Things like getting all done up, making sure my hair's a certain way, or my makeup is done, or my nails are done, or that I've got sparkly things on. But at the same time, these are also things that I enjoy. So I've spent so many years really beating myself up about it, like really beating myself up. I could never win in this land of self-criticism. That was all really about me just not seeing me, rejecting me. I was really busy rejecting myself, and I still am lots of the time, but I'm working on it. And I have learned a few things, and I really look forward to sharing those with you. As I was saying earlier, I used to think that I had some things figured out. I knew who I was. I knew how my life was going to go, that I had done the hard work, which I had, and that I was good, like I was good, solid. Part of me had decided that I was just fine on my own. I was just fine keeping a lot of things to myself. I love having deep conversations with other people. I've done it my whole life. I love listening to people. I love understanding people, knowing what's important to them, and connecting with them on a deep level. But you know what? I wasn't. True confession. I have a lot to learn in what it means to truly connect. I know all the things. I know all the theory. I know what the experts have to say. I've taught people techniques on how to do it, but I have not, for some time, done any of this. And it came to my attention, of course, right around the time that I'm like, okay, I'm ready to make this podcast and I'm going to put myself out there and it's going to be great. I'm going to help other people to see all that they can be because I've got it figured out, right? No, 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 no. I can help. And I have learned so many things. And I do know a lot of research and theory and all that good stuff. And I'm really excited to share all of this with you. But it's no coincidence that life delivered me some new learnings right around the time where I thought I was ready to do this. It was very humbling. It is still very humbling to realize how much work I still need to do and that I will always be doing. And if I keep waiting to be perfect, which of course I never will be, and neither will you, and neither will anyone. If I keep waiting, I'm not helping you. I'm not helping myself to be all that I want to be. And sometimes that's the most inspiring thing, right? It's when we can see someone else, when we can see them be it, then we can see it for ourselves. And so here I am, terrified of being seen, terrified about what you are all going to be thinking about me, terrified about the people that don't like me and what they're going to do with all of this information. I have to do it. because this is what life is all about. What we are really here for is not about making money and being successful and having all the things. It's about being seen, truly seen in all of our glory, in all of our strengths and all of our weaknesses, and being able to share that meaningfully with one another. That's why I think we're here. That's why humans are humans. To connect, to belong, to be seen, to be loved. And I want this for you. And if I keep hiding, that's not going to help you. And this world, you might have noticed, could use a little more human connection. So I hope in our time together, you will see yourself a little more clearly as I continue to learn how to see myself a little more clearly. I hope that I will give you some inspiration or maybe just some entertainment, some laughter to help normalize this experience of life. We're in this together. We don't have to have it all figured out, but I do think we have to be in it together. I don't think we're supposed to do this alone. That's been my learning. So I hope you'll join me. Thanks for being here for the Breaking the Seal episode of See It, Be It. We'll see you next time.